Good afternoon to all. In our previous class, we have seen the TE mode in a rectangular waveguide. So let us very quickly see what exactly we have seen in our previous class. In our previous class, we have seen that if you have to do the field analysis in a rectangular waveguide, and if you have to study the TE modes in a rectangular waveguide, then we have to use the Helmholtz equations, we have to solve the Maxwell equations, and using the Maxwell equations, we may obtain the field component uh, Ex, Ey, Ez, Hx, Hy, and Hz is in such a way that we can visualize or we can analyze the field component inside that rectangular waveguide. So in my last class, we have seen that in a TE rectangular waveguide, particularly for the TE mode, these are the final expressions that we have obtained, where Ex components is function of some cos and sine, Ey function is the function of some sine and cos, and as because it is a TE mode, and we know that in the wave propagation direction, the Hz component will be present while the Ez component will be 0, and only that mode will be considered as a TE mode. So ultimately, first of all, we obtain these h of z expressions, and out of that, these h of z expressions, and by substituting and by using the Maxwell equations, we obtain this Ex, Ey, Hx, Hy, and we also know by default Ez equal to 0. So with this, we have now the idea about the way in which the field reside in a TE mode in a rectangular waveguide. So let us see the different modes that can be existed in a TE mode. So in our previous class, we have seen this part also we have seen. So let me recap that part. That here particularly, if we have to generate, for example, the TE00 mode, where all of you aware that these M and N are nothing but the variation of the half wave variations in the broader side and the narrow side respectively. So if we have to analyze that whether the TE00 mode can exist in a rectangular waveguide or not, then here from these major pi expressions, we can easily uh, observe, or we can easily conclude that if we will put here m equal to 0 and n equal to 0, and because these functions are either the function of sine and cosine, and wherever there is a sign, if you use the sign of 0, then definitely that component will vanish, and it means it clearly indicates that if we will put m equal to 0 and n equal to 0, then in that case the all field components will become 0 or vanishes, and hence TE00 mode cannot exist. So this is the first reason why the TE00 mode cannot exist, because all the field components are going to be vanish. Now the next questions, the whether TE10 can be possible. So yes, TE10 mode can be possible, because here m equal to 1 and n equal to 0, and what does it indicate? It actually indicates that in our rectangular waveguide, the broader side we have used as a, and the narrow side we have used as a B. Yes, then here if we consider that m equal to 1 and n equal to 0, means that the only one half wave variations in a broader side, and that is nothing but the a side, while b equal to 0, or sorry, n equal to 0 means there is no variations along this narrow side, and it actually can be represented in this way. So this way I can say that this is the way to express the TE10 mode in a rectangular waveguide. So this way, you can conclude now that TE10 mode can exist, and it is also considered as a dominant mode. Same way, let me argue that the can we have the TE01 mode? So yes, it can also be possible. Why? Because here you can see that here all components are not vanishes. Here, let me put here TE01 means m equal to 0 and n equal to 1. So what does it indicate? It indicates that in these 5 expressions, we have to put the m equal to 0 and n equal to 1. So let us first see for the EX case. So here, if you put m equal to 0 and n equal to 1, it means that uh, here cos 0, so you will get some maximum value, maybe what depending upon the a side a value, you will get any numbers. So it means that ex doesn't vanish, ex is not becoming equal to 0. So I can say that ex exists. Same way, let us see the ey. So here in this case ey, once again I have to put m equal to 0 and n equal to 1. So here if I will put here, so I will get what? The sign 0, 0. So it is very obvious that the ey component does not exist here. So this way ex can exist, ey doesn't exist. Same way, if we are talking about the hx, because here sign equal sign 0, so you will get the 0, so hx becomes 0, so hx term will not be present. But hy exists because here, because there is a m equal to 0 and cos 0 1 and sin 1 may have some values, so hy exists. So ultimately uh, from this major 5 expressions that we have obtained, we can conclude that here TE10 mode or TE01 mode can exist. And if we will now talk about the higher order modes, for example, for example, for example here TE11, for example, then in this case also m will become 1 and it will become 1. And for that case also, if you check, there exist of ex, there will be the existence of the ey, there will be the existence of hx and hy. So it means that now all higher mode greater than that 1 1 will always be existed. So this way I can say that for a TE mode, for a TE rectangular mode, these modes TE10, TE01 and TE11 or higher than any other than this TE11. For example, 21, 12, TE22, 31, 32, reverse way also. So any mode can exist. So this way I can say that these are the possible modes that can be existed in a rectangular waveguide and particularly in a TE mode. But as I mentioned that generally we are using the rectangular waveguide in a single mode, and that single mode is nothing but this TE10 mode, and that is nothing but our dominant mode, because this is the mode at which the frequency is highest or wavelength is shortest. So whenever we have to use any rectangular waveguide, and if we have to transfer the energy, then it is preferably that the the mode that should be generated inside the rectangular waveguide, that should be TE10. So this is what the answer why we are going for the only TE10 mode. So with this I will stop here for the TE rectangular waveguide. So now all of you have idea about the TE modes and the TE rectangular waveguide. In the last class, we have also seen that some other parameters about the rectangular waveguide, and that is nothing but that was one of the parameter was nothing but the cutoff wave number. Okay, and that was denoted by some Kc term. So this Kc term is nothing but I can say that last time I have made one mistake. So I am writing once again the things that earlier I have mentioned that it was like that kc square is equal to kx square, but the correct one is this one, kx square plus ky square, that is equal to kc, not kc square. Earlier, I think my last lesson, I made one mistake, and that was nothing but the kc square. But here it is clear now that the kc is nothing but the cutoff wave number for that rectangular waveguide, where kx is nothing but the cutoff wave number for the x directions, ky is nothing but the cutoff wave number for the y directions. And same way, I can replace the kx by some m pi by a square plus ky is nothing but the n pi by b whole square. So finally, I will get the kc square formula, that is nothing but equal to m pi by a whole square plus n pi by b whole square. So that is your final expression for the cutoff wave number. And here it is clearly mentioning that the cutoff wave number is directly related with the physical dimension a and b, and it is also depending upon this integer. What will be our mode? M equal to either 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1 or 2, 2. So depending upon that number and the physical dimension, you will get the different cutoff wave number. So let me write here this a and b is in a meter. So please convert, if it is given in some centimeters or millimeters, first you have to convert in meters, and then you have to put that numbers in these formulas. So with this, this is the one of the important parameter to characterize the rectangular waveguide. So now based on this cutoff wave number, I can define the fc, and that is nothing but our cutoff frequency. So that is nothing but cutoff frequency. So we have defined that cutoff frequency fc is nothing but our 1 over 2 pi square root of mu epsilon in bracket m by a whole square plus n by b whole square. So this is what our cutoff frequencies that I think last time also we have derived, but this is our final expressions. So let me clear that this cutoff frequency is a very crucial frequency, and based on that cutoff frequency, we are trying to find out that the what should be our operating frequencies. So ultimately, how can I have to conclude that this is our final expressions. So the derivation of these expressions I can write in this way, that let kc is nothing but our kx square plus ky square. Then I can write that this kc square is nothing but our kx square plus ky square. And now we know that kc square is very obvious, it is nothing but our omega c square into mu into epsilon, and that is nothing but our kx square plus ky square. So I can have now the idea that if I have to find out the fc, then what I have to do, I have to simply change this one as a 2 pi fc. So omega c can be replaced by the 2 pi fc whole square mu epsilon, and that is nothing but equal to kx square plus ky square. So this way I have the, now I just want the everything is in terms of the fc. So I can write that it is nothing but the, because it is a square, so I will make it a square root. So kx square plus ky square and divide by 2 pi and then mu into epsilon. So ultimately fc will become now our 1 over 2 pi, and because now sorry, one thing I missed, because you take the square root, then here also you will get the, because it is a square, so you will get here square root. So ultimately you will get the 2 pi square root of mu epsilon, and in bracket you can write the kx square plus ky square. And now we know that the fc is nothing but kx square and ky is nothing but in terms of the m and n, it can be write in this way, square root of 2 pi and m pi x by a whole square plus n pi by b whole square. There is no x, sorry. So this way I can say that, and if I will come out the FC, let me clear that, let me come out this pi outside, then it will become the pi square and square root, so pi will cancel. So ultimately it will become like a FC is become square root of 2 into mu epsilon in square root m by a whole square plus n by b whole square. So finally, I have the FC in terms of the now other where everything is in terms of the M and N and A and B terms. So once you know the permeability, once you know the permittivity, once you know the M and N integer, or I can say the mode, and once you know the physical dimension of that rectangular waveguide, you can easily find out the cutoff frequency. So from this, I can also argue one thing, that I can define now cutoff frequency also. So sorry, cutoff wavelength. So what is this? It is nothing but our lambda c, and that is nothing but inverse of the fc. And all of you know that the 1 over this mu into epsilon, that is nothing but if you consider that the air as a medium, and you replace the mu is equal to mu 0 and epsilon is equal to epsilon 0, then this term is nothing but equivalent to the speed of the light, so c, and that is nothing but equal to 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. So I can easily write out the fc is nothing but the c by 2 square root of m by a whole square plus n by b whole square. So this way I have now the another expressions which actually express the cutoff frequency in terms of the speed of the light. So now we have the lambda, in terms of the cutoff frequency. But if I have to now use the lambda c, so it is nothing but the inverse of the whatever the our this number. So I can write down that here the lambda c will become like a 1, I can write that the 1 over fc. So lambda c become nothing but the 2 over this way m by a whole square plus n by b whole square. Okay, so this will become your lambda c. And let me clear that now if we will try to make it that a equal to, for example, for a TE10 mode, if we want to find out the what is our lambda c, then it will become like a lambda c is nothing but our 2, and here there is a square root of 1 by a whole square, and there is a term 0, so there it will become 0, so it will become like a square and the square root, so it will become 2a. So our lambda c will become like a 2a. So this way now we have a final expressions cutoff wavelength, that is nothing but the lambda c is nothing but our 2a for a TE10 mode. So please remember this part. This one is very crucial. So sometimes in your example you have to use these expressions. So please remember that now our lambda c is nothing but lambda c is nothing but 2a for the TE10 mode. Okay. So this way now we have the formula is in terms of the I can say that in terms of the everything is in terms of the dimensions. So here the dimensions are only the Rödel's dimension. But if you know if there is another mode, then you can use these expressions lambda c or fc, and can either using a x or y, you can judge or you can calculate that whether that operating frequency can propagate inside the guide or not. So for that case, please remember that the f should be greater than fc, or lambda should be greater than lambda c. So if this condition satisfied, then only the wave can propagate inside the guide. So for that case particularly, we should have the idea about this fc and the lambda c. So this is what the cutoff frequency and the cutoff wave length. So with this, I will now try to give you the other point, and that point is nothing but let us see the propagation constant. Yes. So last time we have seen, but let me once again write down propagation constant, and all of you now know that the propagation constant is different than the our free space medium. Now it is a beta g. So now beta g will be nothing but the omega square root of mu epsilon. But because now it is not in a free space, so we have to add one more term, and that is related with the cutoff frequency. So the term is nothing but the 1 minus fc over f whole square. So this is the I can say the propagation constant beta g. So the way in which the phase constant or the wave will propagate inside the guide can be judged, can be calculated by using this phase constant or propagation constant. So we can also have the another parameter, and that is nothing but the phase velocity. So how what will be the velocity of that wave inside the waveguide in a, for example, in a particular z direction? If you have to find out, then you can find out using this formula, and that is nothing but the vg. Earlier it was a simple v, and that is related with the phase velocity, simple wave velocity in a free space. But because here it is a guide, so it is considered as a guide phase velocity. So guide phase velocity can be expressed as a omega by beta g. So earlier it was a beta only. So any phase velocity can be expressed by omega by beta g. But we know that the beta g is nothing but our this expression. So if I will put here omega square root of mu epsilon and all this term 1 minus fc over f whole square, then what will happen? Finally I will get omega will cancel. So and I know that this velocity is nothing but our light velocity. So I can write here as a c. So c by square root of 1 minus fc over f whole square. So this way now I have a final phase velocity in a waveguide, that is nothing but the Vg is equal to the speed of light divided by the square root of 1 minus fc over f whole square. So this way now I have one more parameter that can be used to characterize the wave propagation in a rectangular waveguide. Now let us see the one more another parameter. We have seen the gamma g. Okay, propagation constant we have seen the fc, we have seen the lambda g. Now we have seen the beta g. Now we have seen the vg. So these are all are the parameters related with the wave characterizations. So the now the last term, which is also very I can say that if you know that parameters, then you can easily characterize the wave behavior, and that is nothing but the characteristics impedance. So characteristics impedance, and that is nothing but our zg. So I think all of you aware that in our transmission line chapter we have seen the characteristics impedance, and that is nothing but the z0. But here it is something different. It is not, because it is not a free space, it is not a transmission line. So the characteristics impedance in a rectangular waveguide for a TE-MN mode can be expressed as a either as a ratio of the two electric field. It can be considered as a hx by ex by hy, or minus ey by hx, or I can express by omega mu by beta g. So where this mu is nothing but the permeability, and this beta g is nothing but our phase velocity. So uh, so I can say that this characteristic impedance, if you will put the value also, then we will find that these expressions can be written as omega is already known. Uh, this part, I think we put it as it is. So mu, we know the beta g is nothing but our mu square root of mu epsilon, and then 1 minus fc over f whole square. So if you will see, we can cancel omega omega, even mu square root, so square root will be here, so square root of mu by epsilon, and here it is nothing but 1 minus one denominator में 1 minus fc over f whole square. So I can write in this way that the zg is nothing but, so now this part is nothing but I can say that if you put mu is equal to mu 0 and epsilon is equal to epsilon 0, and if you put the value, then you will get it is nothing but our pure intrinsic impedance. So this is nothing but our intrinsic impedance. And intrinsic impedance is a well-known term when we have seen the uniform plane wave. And denominator में 1 minus fc over f over whole square. So finally, the characteristic impedance of a TEM mode, that is nothing but Zg is nothing but the eta over 1 minus fc over f whole square. So this is your final characteristic impedance. So you can see that now as you go on increasing this term, and if this number increases, then the impedance decreases. So it may happen that the characteristic impedance may have the lower value than that the intrinsic impedance values for the case of the TE mode. So for the TE mode, you will get the lesser impedance value than that intrinsic impedance value. But it may happen that we will see that in case of the TM mode, this value will be larger than that eta 2. So that we will see later on. But with this, I think now we have seen the each and every major I can say that the uh, parameter, only one parameter, yes, still we can add we can discuss one more parameter, and that is nothing but the wavelength of that guide. So I think when we have seen in our first class, we have discussed that whenever any uniform plane wave enter into the rectangular waveguide, that operating wavelength, for example, is a lambda, then it resolves in a two part. One is called the normal wavelength, plane normal to that plane wave, that will become our lambda was resolved into the lambda n and lambda p. So it means that now our wavelength is different than that your uniform plane wave wavelength. So I can say that now the wavelength lambda g in a guide can be expressed as nothing but directly the final relation is this, that the lambda by, I can say that the 1 minus fc over f whole square. So from where I can conclude, so I can say that you can prove this one too, but there is a direct relation that the lambda is nothing but our whatever the c by f, for example. Okay, and here we are looking for what we are looking for the lambda g's, and for that this is your final expressions that you have to remember for guide wavelength lambda g. So let me give you one more point here, so please hold 1 minute. Okay, fine. So with this, we'll stop here. And now we'll try to solve one problem based on this theory, so that you will get the more idea about the rectangular waveguide for the TE mode. So I hope that now you do not have any questions. So let me stop first of all the recording.